And we begin home show. No, not home show. Ask Tom Live. This has a very abrupt ending. We've been having this new intro, and I'm trying to time it right, and I totally blew that one too. But there's always next week and the week after. Maybe by the third, fourth year.
I can play it again. You want to try again?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm out. I'm gone. It's like that first pitch of the game when it's off to the side. I just leave. I'm done. I'm not going to do it again.
All right.
Okay, listen. We're here to answer your home improvement questions. I do it every Saturday from 9 to noon on Sports Radio 610. Been doing it. Going to be finishing my 34th year next month, actually. And also on Sundays, 8 to 11, when the Texans aren't playing, because we're on Sports Radio 610 on the weekends. And they play on most Sundays, not this Sunday, but most Sundays. And then we go on a little early on Sunday from 7 to 9 because there's a lot of pregame warm-up stuff that the station does. But we've been doing it since 2003, I think, on this particular station. And it's been real good. We have Danny before me, who is with the Garden Pros, and he is our gardening expert on Saturday from 7 to 9. And if I am correct, he'll be with us today answering some of your gardening questions, because it is close to, but not the last Thursday of the month. But we're going to compress it a little bit, the month a little bit, for other reasons that we don't want to waste time with. And, of course, there's Mr. Mosier himself, who runs the whole thing. Oh, there's Danny. Danny just showed up.
We're compressing you now, Danny. That's it.
Compressing. Okay. He's got his pilot headphones on. Land the plane, Danny. Land the plane.
Breaker 19er. We got a flight situation.
Breaker 19er? I think that's a truck.
All right, Rubber Ducky. We'll be back to you a little later. Okay. All right.
Sounds
so
good.
what Tom and I do here every week is answer your questions that you send us at homeshowradio.com using the Ask Tom button. But we also make it available for you to go ahead and send them to us on our right there on our Facebook page. So that would be awesome. If you want to do that, that would be great. We'd love to have you on. In fact, let me make sure. In fact, it's on right there. So you go ahead and put them in the questions section at the bottom, and we'll answer them for you. And that's the program. But before we do that, we always like to start the week by talking about news of home improvement value around the world and up your block. And this week, our journey takes us to see, look what Tom did.
No! Oh, okay. I'll
this. Oh, no,
we're
not
going to know what that means before I see it. Now I know
we weren't going to talk about that part on the air, Tom, but instead, you want to explain what this fine group of humans is?
That was my last welding graduating class over at Texas Southmost College. That actually, there's a new thing coming up next Thursday that I can brag about, too, in that program. But I run what I consider the finest welding program in the country. These are just some of our students. There's my instructor, the man with the big smile and the big beard, and his name is Alonzo Zapata. He did a great job. I'm the guy in the back that looks like the janitor because I have the T-shirt on, and I'm about to scrub the floors and move everybody out of the way. And we've got some great students there, and they all graduated and did very well. And in that welding program next Thursday, I'll maybe be able to get some pictures and tell you about it. We are starting our first SpaceX testing program. We're testing all the welders so they can get jobs at SpaceX. In fact, SpaceX and Texas Southmost College has just created a partnership to where the testing facility that I created there at their college is going to be their #1 testing facility. So we're very proud of that and proud of all our students. We currently have almost 100 welding students throughout the day in our new semester classes right now, and we are rocking and rolling over there. We have a lot of other programs too, but that is my welding class there.
Oh, that's awesome. And in case you're curious to know more about it, you can put the URL down at the bottom, that will take you to this page. And
that's it.
I've blurred out Tom's name and email, and just to protect the innocent. So
there you go. Yes,
and
it's a great program.
Is what's in the news this week. All right, we want to talk to you. We want to get your questions, and of course, we normally have Danny. You come on with us normally on the last. He's got that Norm Macdonald kind of here you are kind of look to him.
It's good.
So anyway, but where are you, Danny? Are you like working at
his house?
There's a lot going on in his house.
No, this is the Houston Botanic Gardens. I'm
that's your
here
office
in my desk area Yeah.
Desk.
So
Tell us
Oh, you
about
have
that.
a desk area, not an office. Okay. I
Not
got
just
one
a
of those
desk,
too.
but not just a desk area. Tell us,
general
tell us,
zone.
yeah, tell us about that. Explain Houston Botanical Gardens, what it is. What do you do there?
Well, a botanic garden in general is kind of a zoo for plants. So a museum, curated collection, beautiful stuff. There went Michael. And it is just a beautiful space. The garden itself is just gorgeous. And so you walk in, you're invited to experience this huge diversity of beautiful plants. And it's kind of in honor of Houston, huge diversity in our city as well. So get in there and just wander around, see all the glory. And then you start learning. You notice the signs. You see the people doing stuff. You get the pollinators coming across. It's all very gorgeous. And Director of Education. I curate the classes program. You know my mission in life, to get more people connected to their soil, to their plants, to their space. And that's what I'm doing here at Houston Botanic Garden, as well as on Home Show Garden Pros.
Not
I was
necessarily
going
in
to
that
say,
order.
Danny, in my younger days, I was a pollinator. Not anymore. I'm too old.
Okay. So, Danny, we get a fair number of questions. Yeah, we get a fair number of questions about things green and growing. And while we love to have Tom answer questions, we like once a month to have you come in and answer a few. So let me throw one your way
Absolutely.
and see how you can field this one. It comes from Riva in Houston. She says, one of the pallets of St. Augustine we had installed in our yard last July was infested with sodworms. What is the best product to use to get rid of them? We have tried granular and liquid, but neither seems to work. What product do you suggest, and how is it applied? How often? She wants the 411 on this, Danny.
Yeah, and we were putting out a method last year when sod webworms were just really, really awful. And that is a combination of horticultural molasses, which those small little worms cannot digest, and BT, which kills them in the same route. And so you mix those two together, you kind of catch them all. The horticultural molasses serves as a surfactant, makes it stickier, if you will. And then you do a heavy spray on your lawn whenever you have damage and around those areas. And then you follow up with garlic barrier. It's like a smelly spray that the moths don't like. And so if you can kill the caterpillars and drive away the moths, then you will not have that repetitive problem. The problem last year is we had maybe like 6 or 7 generations of sod webworms. So if you're dealing with them in a pallet of sod, I would just drench that pallet with molasses. Just really, really get buckets and buckets and pour it over there. But in your yard, you have to use a sprayer. A hose end sprayer is a way to go.
Are we past that season now? I mean, now that it's getting cooler, I mean, is sod webworms kind of over for this year, or is it going to persist a little longer?
That's a great question, actually. Charlie, way to go. Nice
Yeah,
job.
lucky shot. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to answer it? Sorry. So what we do, no, we're not past it this year, but it usually is kind of cyclical. So some years will be much worse than other years. So last year being a really terrible year, we won't see them in abundance this year. So most people that are having any problems are having them in small patches, 8 by 10 sort of sections, things like that, but not billions and billions like last year. But it still can be a problem. This year is more of a we got fungal concerns out there. The good news is that if you can mix horticultural molasses with seaweed, which Microlife makes that product called Plant and Soil Energy, it will stymie that fungal problem, and then you bring in some compost and your grass will grow back and you won't even know you had it. So you just got to get on that early.
Well, let's stick to grass for a second, because I know you love grass questions.
I do.
It's the one plant everyone has.
It's
Mike,
the only plant we buy a machine to manage too.
Mike says his neighborhood has a ton of crabgrass growing in common spaces. Is there a proper way of fertilizing with a pre or post emergent or spot treating? Because what spot treating said would get expensive. Should St. Augustine cutting height be adjusted to let the turf get thicker? What say you?
So crabgrass really goes for really kind of compacted and poor soils. And a lot of times you see it between spaces because you've got a organic approach and a chemical approach, and they kind of cancel each other out. And so Agrelon is an awesome topical treatment for that. And if you either use a flower sifter or a dust miser, which is kind of a flower sifter mixed with a blower, you can really get it on a lot. It'll spread a lot further. The Agrelon will. It's a powder. So you moisten the crabgrass and you spread it over with whatever device you're using to spread it over. and that will kill the crabgrass very thoroughly. Pre-emergent would be awesome, but you just need to apply it several times during the seeding cycle, which is generally in the summertime. And a lot of the pre-emergents are a little bit dangerous to put down in the summer for your St. Augustine. So I do like his approach of just improving the health of the grass, growing a little bit taller. If you have a really healthy soil, you really won't see very much crabgrass. So again, we get back to kind of like using microlife, using Nature's Great Resources compost as a top dressing, as just simple ways to improve the health of your lawn's soil.
Okay, fair enough. All right, got another one for you here, Danny. This one comes from Constance in Kingwood. She asks, "Can I? Yes, I remember back in the '80s when I moved here, they called it the smokable forest, but that's a whole other story for another day."
Okay.
She says, "Can I use Dakota Rev year-round for in-ground plants, or should I hold off when plants? Oops, sorry, Tom. Plants are dormant. I hit the button by mistake. I'm sorry."
So the cool thing about Dakota Rev is that it activates the soil space. Roots are growing year-round here. We don't have a root off-season, and so Dakota Rev is a really great thing to do year-round. If you're trying to push something to have a longer season, either a later dormancy or an earlier spring, Dakota Rev's kind of strange combination of carbon atoms does that. It'll activate your grass sooner. Grass is the really only space I can think of besides trees where we would have a dormancy. And trees, using Dakota Rev all year on your trees is a very good idea. So I'm constantly apply. Is that rude to make fun of her name?
I'm sure that's music to the ears of the people at Dakota Rev. When you say it's a carbon thing, what does that mean? What does that help us non-gardeners understand what that means and what's it doing for the plants, Danny?
I think that's really great. So, like the three of us, we're carbon-based, entities, and so we have to eat a lot of carbon.
I haven't really had a close check of Tom, but I'm pretty sure.
Tom?
They're trying to eliminate all carbon on the planet, so we're in line for that.
That's going to be tricky.
So little
Yes,
carbs.
it is.
Carbs are carbon, right? And so,
Right.
we just like we got to eat carbon to survive. Those soil microbes, be it fungi or be it bacteria, or the things that eat those things, all are going for carbon. And so if you put carbon in the soil, safe carbon in the soil, they will have a feeding frenzy and a growing frenzy, and you will have aerated your soil. They will die, which they have nitrogen-rich bodies, so you'll add a bunch of nitrogen to the soil too, and they'll tunnel. So you'll do this cool thing where you're creating a much healthier environment. Those tunnels are the preferred tunnel for roots because they are chock full of nitrogen, which is really cool. So that's a very short version of why carbon is so important in the soil. It deepens the roots, and it is akin to fertilizing with nitrogen.
Okay, fair enough. I got one more for you, and we're going to talk a little more about general what we should be working on right now in our yard and our garden. But let's get this one last question before we do that. It comes from Ted and Katie. He says, "I moved here from the Midwest 2 years ago. My lawn did not appear to have much special care from previous owners. We used 3 applications of Microlife in the past 12 months. Had beautiful lawns this spring through July, but now we have brown areas." This sounds like brown. Is that brown patch he's seeing? What's your advice?
Yeah, this year, assuming what we went through with that wet spring and early summer, that fungi were going to be really going nuts this year. So I'd assume brown patch. The one difference that we can tell between brown patch and sod webworm is sod webworm kind of move very erratically, and it looks like somebody's chewed your grass down before it turns brown. And so that's the one way to tell them apart, where brown patch is kind of circular in its growth pattern. So that's either way. Molasses is a great treatment. If you're really unsure, always send us some pics. homeshowgardenpros.com. There's an Ask a Pro button. You can always send us a picture there, and we'll learn better through that kind of visual aid. But let's just assume it's brown patch because fungi has been so bad. That's where a really deep treatment with molasses is helpful. And also there's a product by the same people who make my favorite molasses, Microlife. They also make a product called MicroGrow, and that will do a good job of stymieing the fungi by putting bacteria that eat that fungi in the soil. And once they eat it all, then you don't have it anymore. And then you come back, top dress with compost to kind of seal the deal, and it'll be like you never had a problem.
So this time of year, Danny, What should we be working on? What can be like? Let's start first of all your garden. What's the right thing we should be planting this time of year?
Charlie, it's a super exciting time to plant. It's such a exciting time to plant because all the fall veggies. So the big thing that either have the people who love the kale and the collard greens and those big leafy greens, or you have the salad makers doing the lettuce, the carrots, all that stuff. Green onions, so bunching onions, are a great thing to be growing right now. And you can find sets of those or seeds of those at all the co-op locations. And like you guys are like, no kale, or you're like, kale.
No,
So,
I eat tons of kale. Thank you. I eat it every day. Please.
that's right. I really love collard
love it.
greens.
Yeah. Good stuff.
But yeah, cabbage, broccoli.
Yeah.
Are you one of those
cauliflower.
twisted people who actually likes Brussels sprouts?
Yes.
Brussels sprouts, you got to get those
They're
in early, Charlie.
fantastic.
They got to go in now for
Okay.
spring harvest.
No, I wasn't asking to plant them. I was just curious if you eat them.
I eat them all the time.
I love them. Yes, and they're
I
little
do
like
too.
little. They're like tiny cabbages. You know how
I'm
to
like
Oh,
missing
they
out.
are little
I feel like maybe
cabbages.
I'm missing out. Maybe I should just maybe give this Brussels sprouts thing another run. I don't
Yeah,
know.
give Whataburger a break. I
don't go to Whataburger. No,
Yeah, you get the salad.
no, I go to Freddy's. But
There you go.
it was Smash
custard
Burger before
also.
Smash Burger was Smash Burger. All right. All right. So what about around the yard, Danny? I mean, is there any? Is this the time of year to be trimming things back, maybe, or is this a bad time for that?
Well, what really happens? Two things are happening right now. The end of the summer stress, and so a lot of plants are kind of cratering. And so by getting a real strong fertilizer in, like MicroLife or Dakota Rev, like we've been talking about in there, that is a great way to resuscitate some of these struggling plants. And when they're struggling, they usually lose some leaves, and so you can remove some of those leaves now, branches, leaves, things like that. Get those out of there, cut back. Everybody's a lot more energized for gardening, and so yeah, get out there, clear the space off, make it pretty again, get some annual plants in, and prune up stuff. If you prune up a lot of our native kind of flowering plants, you get a whole new flush of color. Things like Turk's Cap or Salvia. You can get a whole new, flower bloom off those. So they're a great thing to get out and do that now. And, today the weather's real nice. So
It's
maybe
Chamber
do
of
it today.
Commerce weather out there today.
It really
Yeah.
is. It's
Yeah.
so nice.
What about hummingbirds, butterflies? Are they gone now? Is that how long before will we still have them in the backyard?
The hummingbirds are not gone, but it's a couple more weeks. So, but if you haven't set a feeder out, they don't really know to come to your house. That's something you really
Oh no,
want to
no,
start.
trust me. No, we were talking about Freddy's and Whataburger. Sandy put up the neon signs for them. We used to have them all the time in the backyard. I'm just curious how much longer we're going to have them. You're saying a couple weeks tops?
Yeah, about 2 weeks probably is it. And we should have a large amount of them for the next 2 weeks. So this is the body of the season. Then it dies pretty quick. So I know they love Turk's Cap, which is one of my favorite plants, and they're just
We got
all
it.
over the place.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? What's the other one Sandy has in the backyard?
Amelia, the butterfly bush.
It's the one. Yep. Anyway. All right. Danny, you are awesome. If you want to catch
Danny,
more.
every time I listen to you, I just listened this whole time. I learned two things. I always want to take something with me. You always have something. One is I didn't realize, and I should. It's pretty basic now that I think about it. Sod webworms can come in turf that you buy. I had just never thought about it, but you can infect an entire yard by putting some bad grass down. It sounds like, so people need to be careful. And the other thing is, I had no idea carbon was carbs. I watch my carbs all the time. I had no idea I was watching carbs.
Yeah.
That is really cool. I like that. I don't know why, but I'm going to think about it all night.
Yeah, I don't know where they got the name carbs, but
Carbohydrate, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
It could have
I know
something to do with that.
carbohydrate, but I didn't know it was carbon. But it is. It's the same
I
root
don't
word.
think
It's freaking me out.
Yeah, I think is that right? I mean, are you making
it's
that
got
up?
carbon in it. It's
Yeah.
energy for us. Yeah, so our body
Okay.
breaks it down into water, H2O, and carbon, C, and so that's what it does.
Fascinating.
But when
love
you eat them, your body stops burning other stuff, so they're bad.
Yeah, and
Carbohydrates are bad.
It
you want
depends
some
which
good,
one.
clean, pure carbon.
Yes.
That's the
Right.
stuff that you get from.
Yeah, you want-
that's the
you
stuff
want
that
diet
stores on
advice.
your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want diet advice? Talk to these guys. not this guy.
Yeah, no, just go to Home Show Diet Pros, and they have
That's
Diet
our new.
Pros.
In fact,
New
that's our
show.
new show. We have
I
somebody
like it.
named Lisa joining us. She's going to be. That's the first show she's selling. She's going to go sell the new the Diet Pro show. That'd be awesome.
We're starting the whole show, the first one, with Brussels sprouts and what you can do with them.
You know what?
like
One of the things Donald Trump says that makes perfect sense: don't go into a business you don't understand. So we're going to stay away from Diet Pros around here.
nice. Yeah,
Fair
that's
enough. Hey, Danny, thanks a lot. You want more of Danny? Here's where you
Thanks,
find
Danny.
him. He's there every Saturday morning, 7 to 9. Comes on right before Tom. He's the Home Show Radio warm-up act.
Yes.
No, he's not.
And
No,
if you
he's
want to ask
not.
us an email, if you want to email us, you want to put that back up real quick, Charlie?
Yes, sir.
The Ask a Pro button there is how you get a lot of questions into us, and we'll answer them. So
That big green button right there in the middle of the page. It's so
we're
weird.
here to
It's
help.
like in the same place we have the Ask Tom button on Home Show Radio. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, but see how Danny knows his website, and I don't think I've ever visited
Tom knows
mine, but
of
twice.
his website. Danny knows his website. Tom knows of his website.
I know
Right.
it's
what's the
there.
internet? What is this thing?
All right.
Yeah, no.
Hey, we got Tom. We've got a lot of Tom questions to ask. So, Danny, we'll let you get back. Houston Botanical Center, right? It is.
Houston Botanic Gardens.
That's
It's
the
a
one.
Beautiful spot.
Yeah. And it-
HBG.org.
hbg.org.
Mm-hmm.
And it's over by, I'll tell you what, it is a hidden gem if you've never been there. It's right over by Hobby, and you think I'm in the wrong place for this kind of thing. Then all of a sudden there it is. And it is beautiful. It's stunning, and and I'll tell you what, this is the time of year to go visit them because the weather is so perfect, and you're going to want to linger and see all the stuff they have out there. Danny, thank you so much for spending time with us. I appreciate it.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Danny.
Guys.
So, Tom, your
Yes.
turn. Your turn on
Okay.
the spit, boy. Okay. First question
ready.
comes. Your first question comes from Larry in Fresno. He says, "I have a 12-year-old oak tree in the front yard." Kind of a segue here. You see how we're doing that?
Yep.
In the front yard, about 10 feet from the house. I'm debating whether to take the tree down or put a root barrier in. How should I decide?
I'll tell him right now, and I don't know if Danny would agree, but I'm the house guy. Take it down now. Just take it down. 10 feet is too close for an oak, especially if it's a live oak or one of the ones that spread. It is going to win the battle. Now, root barrier will help the foundation somewhat, but it's going to outbalance the tree, and then the tree could fall down away from the house sometime because a big tree like that needs to spread out with its roots to hold it up. But I would say take it down. And here's what I tell people, Charlie, is you can take a tree down without destroying the earth. Take it down, re-landscape, replant, and then plant another one, but plant it farther away from the house. Trees are there. They're available. You can go to RCW Nurseries. They have a tree farm, go wherever you want. But get a tree and replant it. Just plant it in a place that doesn't affect the home. It's easily done, and you can do that. But I would take it down now because if you don't, when you have to take it down, it gets so big. The cost to take it down and the damage that's going to be done to your yard and your landscaping, your sprinkler system is going to be could be up to $5,000 to $10,000, maybe even more, depending how out of hand it gets.
Could get into the cajillions if you're not careful.
Well, to me, that's a cajillion right there, 10 grand. So, yes.
All right. Suzanne, in a related story, Suzanne says, Nicholas blew my fence down. The posts were rotten at the base, and the whole fence simply flopped over. Would dipping the post in asphalt and inserting in concrete that is higher than the ground level help solve this? And she's talking about with the new fence. The intent of the asphalt would be reduce the moisture getting into it. It seems to make sense to me. What do you say, Tom?
I say this. First off, I tell people every year, so we're going to start with this, not necessarily answering this question, but these old fences are only going to last so long. And we get these hurricanes, people get upset like, hey, I didn't know my fence was going to fall over. If you go out there once a year and shake your fence and you can shake it, it's time to start pricing out a new fence. That's the way you have to deal with this stuff because it can be dangerous if we get a bad enough storm and blow that fence material through somebody's window, through their car windows, whatever the case may be. Fences are a big maintenance issue. Now, her question about do I dip it in asphalt? First off, where do you find asphalt? You'd have to have a big giant pot of hot, gooey asphalt they used to use on roofs and dip it down in there. In the old days, they used to dip it in creosote, but it's very difficult, if impossible, to get that now because of all the EPA rules and everything. So I doubt you're going to find anything. But if you treat the bottom of a post and you put it in the ground, it certainly will last longer than if you didn't treat it. No doubt about it. If you got some roofing tar or cement is really what it's called, roofing cement, it's not tar, and put it on there, it's still going to dry out, crack, and it'll prolong it a little bit, but not all the way. The place where it rots is right at the ground and the fence where it gets wet and dry, wet and dry. So if you can pull the concrete up and you can take it higher than the ground so it doesn't stay in wet ground like that, that's going to help. But remember, the wood will shrink over time. The water crawls into the concrete between the wood and the concrete, and then it rots down in there because it has nowhere to go. So what I'm getting at is put the fence post in and do the best you can. But remember, 18 years, maybe 15 years, you're going to replace it again. It's nothing that is permanent. Don't try to make it. You'll just drive yourself crazy if you want a permanent fence. It doesn't exist.
Boy, oh boy, we could write a book about permanent fences. All right.
Okay, yeah, you can't have one. That's it.
If you know what I'm saying.
It doesn't exist.
All right. Donald and Clayton, just a little roll call here. Everybody who's here. Donald and Clayton and Mike and Rhonda and Kelly, Antonio, Sandy, hey babe, Jibby is here, Daniel, Justin, Carl, Robbie, Andy, Trish. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. We're here every Thursday at 4 o'clock Central answering the questions you send us in. We're trying to get as many in as we can today. I got one. Jibby just sent one in. He says, and it's a long question, Tom, but what it boils down to is he wants to know, should he or should he not ground a portable generator that he's got hooked up to his house? He's afraid it's going to conflict with the GFCIs.
Understand. No, don't worry about it. Just turn it on and go with it. Now, is your GFCI going to be a little fluctuating and stuff? Because it's just a portable generator. Yeah, they aren't meant to really run off that, but it depends more what you plug into it. If you don't use it too much, if you have a little surge or something, you might have to reset it. It's not a big deal. But grounding it is not going to do you any good. And secondly, you don't ground portable generators, so don't bother.
All right, and here's another one for us here. Comes from Jack. He says that he has a fence that's not even a year old. The fence guy did foam material instead of concrete for the post, and it was shaking in the storm, and now my gate won't close at all. He says, am I shafted and have to get my gate? At this point, I may reduce small sections of my fence since it's facing the street. What say you, Tom?
Well, yeah, it sounds like the posts weren't set deep enough. Anytime you have a post next to a gate or a corner post, they go down deeper. And the rule is for every, it goes down 1/3. If you had a 9-foot, you had 6 feet out of the ground, 3 feet below, you would buy a 9-foot post. So think of it 1/3 down, 2/3 up for gate posts and corner posts. The other ones don't have to go down as deep, but they still have to go down. But as far as that goes, it probably didn't go down deep enough, and it just, the upper soils just got real loose from all the rain we've had, especially this year. And so you might have to reset that post and rebuild that little section if it got really bad.
Okay. Alfred lives in Sealy. He says, I found the lowest electric plans for my zip code. Will they go down anytime soon? Yes, Nostradamus, please tell us. Are they going to go down? And should I lock into a short or long-term plan?
It's funny, you know, I've had a lot of questions about this free solar, free night, energy plans. So I did a whole bunch of research the other night and just went shopping for fun, made phone calls, pretend I was a customer. A lot of salespeople hate me right now. But the fact of the matter is right now they're kind of high. Everything that I could find is around 10.5 cents. So I would go at the most a 4-month if you need to lock into something right now. And they are going to go down in the winter just naturally. How far down, I don't know. I'm paying 6 right now. I bought mine a year ago. They might go down as low as 6, could be even lower. Who knows what's going to happen? But they definitely will drop in the next 90 to 120 days, no doubt about it.
All right. Then we got one here from Michael in Hockley. He says, about 12 to 15 years ago, I had spray-on radiant barrier installed. Do you think there'd be any benefit to having foil stapled in, or am I okay just with the paint? Or Tom, does he need to update the paint?
No to all of it. You got it. It's fine. If it was put on the underside of the roof deck, you're fine. Now, people always say, is a double barrier better than a single barrier? No, not enough to make any sense. And here's what I'm going to tell you. A paintable radiant barrier will stop, let's say, 75% of the radiation coming through. Okay, now a foil barrier will stop maybe 95, 96%. So the number's a little bit greater. But if you put a second layer, all you're going to do, whether it's the paint, and I'm going to use the foil as an example, if you have 3 or 4% coming through the radiant barrier, it's going to stop 96% of 3%. Or with the paint, it's going to stop 96 or 95, 96% of 20%. So the numbers just drop dramatically. One barrier is enough, and that's all that's really going to get your money's worth out of it. You won't even see a difference with a second one.
All right. And finally, Haniel writes to us. He says, following the freeze in February and recent power hurricane outages, I'm interested in getting a generator. What brand do you recommend, Tom?
Well, there's a lot of generators, and I want you to get the one you can afford, the one that the person's going to be servicing. It's like an air conditioner almost. You have a service contract. You want to make sure they come every year, or at least twice a year, actually, on mine. I have a Kohler, so if you ask me which one I thought was the best at the time I bought it, a Kohler generator. If you ask me with my service company, they prefer to install Kohlers. That's KISS generators, so I would look at that if you want the best. It's really a well-made unit. Are there other ones out there? Yeah, and can you, do a lesser one if you maintain it and do more maintenance on it? Of course, there's a difference between a real expensive car and a regular car like regular folk like me drive, like my Grand Marquis. But I maintain it. It works fine for me. I just remember, maintenance is the biggest thing. And if you want to know the brand I prefer, it's a Kohler.
Same one I got behind my house.
Yeah, they're great. And the same ones that are used in big commercial, too, by the way. And the commercial units are really better than just the homeowner brand units. Mm-hmm. You can find that with air conditioners, with everything. It's the companies that do both usually make a better product because it kind of folds over each other.
Well, during that most recent hurricane outage that Daniel was talking about there, we ran our generator for almost 36 hours. And we're never once out of power, but we got worried, or Sandy got worried that that maybe we're running it too long. And I called him and said, "Hey, you can run that thing for days. What are you talking about?" And he said, "But you know what?" Bert over at KISS said, "I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll stop by tomorrow and check your oil." He says what his advice on it is, if you're going to run it for a long period of time, about every 48 hours, turn it off, check the oil, top it, start it back up again. So he came by and we were fine. Oil was good and all that. So no, and I say that only because that's the nature of not only Bert, but all of our home show pros. We've gone to a lot of trouble to find people you can trust, and we hide them right here. I'll show you our secret hiding place. Go to homeshowradio.com and scroll down. They're right here on the homepage. Every one of them. And if you're not sure who, but you know what you're looking for, click Find a Pro and scroll down, and we have them organized by category so you can find what you're looking for right there at homeshowradio.com. That's also, I should add, where you go to send us questions, because we're plumb out of time right now, and we love getting together with you every Thursday at 4 o'clock Central Time. But if you'd like to get a question here or in our daily Ask Tom videos, just go to homeshowradio.com and click right there on that blue Ask Tom button. And it'll take you down to a page where you can decide whether you want to send us a written question or a video question, and fill out the form, send us pictures. Pictures always help us do a better job. And of course, Tom, you'll be all over the radio this weekend.
I will be all over on Saturday from 9 to noon and Sunday from 8 to 11. We've got a full show because the Texans are actually playing tonight, a Thursday night game. So we have a full weekend of home improvement extravaganza. And don't forget Danny. He's on before me on Saturdays from 7 to 9.
Well, there you go. And I think I'm on short final here. We're going to land the plane. Gears down, flaps are up, and your tray tables and seat backs are in their upright and locked position. Tom and I will take flight here on Facebook Live and YouTube Live again next Thursday at 4. No, we won't. Next week will actually be a recorded best of show. I'm traveling next week.
You didn't have to say that. They wouldn't know. No, that's okay.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. Oh, no.
That's not true?
You don't give credit to our viewers. we ran a recorded one without telling them, and it was all over the comments. Hey, this is a recorded show. So
Hey,
I'm
give
just
us
going
a
to
break. We need a day off once in a while. Okay?
Once in a while, what I'm telling you. So anyway,
come
I'll be
on.
in Delaware next Thursday, but we will be but I will be with Tom Sunday morning on Early Edition, and we will return in 2 weeks. But next week there will be a best of we have culled the very best of a show that we pulled out of a pile.
There's
and we
never
scheduled.
the best. The minute we have the best, our job is over. So that'll be kind of a good one. Okay,
All right.
What'll be better coming up after that?
Right. So listen to Tom this weekend. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Got a question? Ask Tom on Home Show